Hey guys, welcome to Unit 5, Circular Motion and Gravitation. So we'll be looking at kinematics and forces on first in uniform circular motion. One of the things to realize real quick that if something is in uniform circular motion, we know that it is at a constant speed. So for now, nothing is accelerating while moving in a circle. It's just moving at a constant speed. So the first thing we're going to do is we're looking at your basic mass being twirled in a horizontal circle. So that's you getting something and twirling it over your head, right? Let's remember first that velocity is the distance over time. And basically what we're looking at is the third kinematic, which is v naught t plus 1/2 a t squared. But once again, since everything's in constant velocity, we're just using our distance equals velocity times time. And that's where the velocity equals distance over time comes from. The other thing we have to look at is we have to remember what kind of distance we're traveling. And so how far it travels in one rotation is a circumference. And with what we're using, we're going to use the period of motion as big T, capital T, and that means the time it takes for one complete rotation, that is in seconds. So everything is going to have to be in seconds here. And then we know the circumference as 2 pi r, of course. So therefore, the speed of an object in uniform circular motion, if we use velocity is distance over time, looks like it's going to be 2 pi r over big T. That's the format we want to use it. So we have a plane that makes a complete circle with a radius in 2.1 minutes. What is the speed of the plane? So we just basically use our formula, v equals 2 pi r over big T. My big T is 2.1 minutes. Convert that by multiplying by 60 to get 126 seconds. So I'll just plug everything in. 2 pi, your radius is 3622. And then your time is 126 to get about 180 meters per second. That's how fast that plane was moving in that big circle. So that's how you do most of those questions. So basically we've determined the speed, but is the mass accelerating if something is moving in a circle? And the answer is yes, it is accelerating. Remember that acceleration is a change in velocity per time unit. And what's happening here is in a circle, the object has a tangential velocity, and that's what we'll be looking at most of the time. So when I draw this, they're always tangent to the circle. So we keep drawing these tangents. So if you notice, the velocity is changing, even though the speed remains the same, the direction is changing. That means there is an acceleration occurring, and for us, we're going to draw these centripetal accelerations. They're all directed towards the center. So first we notice that the velocity at any time is always tangent to the circle. And that acceleration is pointing to the center every time we do that. So a couple of quick notes to add here at the bottom. So even though the object is traveling at a constant speed, anything traveling in a circular path is always accelerating because the direction is constantly changing. So the main things to take away so far are the equation, velocity is 2 pi over big T. Remembering big T is period or time for 1 rotation. And then just remembering circumference is 2 pi r. That's the distance the thing travels. The next big piece of information we're going to have to know is the centripetal acceleration. So a sub c is v squared over r. And the other way we'll say this is 4 pi squared r over t squared. So I have a quick derivation here, but I'm going to wait till I get back to go through that with you guys, because there's a couple of similar triangles we want to look at. And I think it'll just kind of be a little confusing to do it this way. But we do know that this is how we treat the centripetal acceleration. And all that means is centripetal acceleration just simply means center seeking, or always pointing towards the center. So we know that the change of direction, the velocity is always towards the center of the circle. And the acceleration of the object is always, again, towards the center. So we have an acceleration that is always pointing towards the center of the circle. But whenever an object is accelerated, there has to be some kind of net force acting on the object. So once again, this is known as the centripetal force. It's not a new force, it's just the net force that accelerates an object towards the center of the path. So an example, if you're twirling something over your head on a string, well, that is tension in the string that's holding the thing together. When a car rounds a corner on a highway, there is friction between the tires and the road that's keeping it on the highway. When the moon orbits the Earth, or the Earth orbits the sun, it's gravity pulling the Earth towards the sun that's keeping the planets or the moon moving in that constant circular motion. So forces, once again, we use forces using Newton's second law. So net force equals mass times acceleration. Well, for centripetal force, it's pretty much the same thing. I say F sub c equals m times a sub c. And my two versions of the acceleration I have, depending on the question I'm using, one just tends to fit better than the other. But it's mass times the centripetal acceleration, which we've already kind of talked about. Those are the two versions of the equation we could use. So the first question that we have something like this. You have a skater moving in a circle. What is their acceleration? So it looks like I have already the velocity of this person as 2.0 and a radius of 4. And it looks like I can use the v squared over r version of the equation to get 1 meter per second squared. And so I know it's kind of just a weird number to have, but we'll talk more about what that acceleration towards the center means a little bit on Thursday. Centripetal acceleration of the moon towards the Earth. Well, everyone knows that it takes about 27 days for the moon to orbit the Earth. The radius between the Earth and the moon is about this number, 3.84 times 10 to the 8th meters. Converting days to seconds is about 2.36 times 10 to the 6th seconds. So using this formula for acceleration, we'll use the 4 pi squared r over big T squared. And that gives us the acceleration of the moon towards the Earth, directed towards the center of its radial path, 2.36 times 10 to the 6th squared. So this should give me, sorry, I'm kind of writing all over the place here, about, this is an odd number, 2.72 times 10 to the negative third meters per second squared. Now there's a reason that acceleration is kind of small. Once again, when you're talking about moon size and planet size objects, a small acceleration and a really large mass can yield a very large force. So more on that on Thursday as well. So the next question is involving the forces. So we have a car that's going around an unbanked curve. And so the free body diagram for this looks something like this. Pointing towards the center is the centripetal force responsible for the car moving in a circle. The one pointing down is Fg, we got good at that. And the one pointing up is the normal force. So the first thing we're going to look at is finding the centripetal acceleration of the car, and it looks like we have enough information to do that. A sub c equals v squared over r equals 14 squared over 96 to get 2.04 meters per second squared. So that's where the acceleration comes from. Now the second question is how we incorporate the force here. What is the minimum coefficient of friction required or between the road and the car's tires to keep the car on the road? Well, one of the things you have to take a look at is realize that the centripetal force and the friction force are the same thing here. That's the thing keeping the car on the road, and so the friction force is the thing providing the centripetal force. So it looks like I can say the friction force is mass times the centripetal acceleration, mu mg for friction. And notice that the masses cancel, giving you this equation, mu g equals a sub c. And solving for mu, a sub c over g equals mu, and then I just plug everything in and divide to get about 0.21 as the coefficient of friction needed to keep the car on the road. So the majority of your questions will come from these kinds of questions right here, just understanding what force is providing the centripetal force. Sometimes it's a string, sometimes it's friction. It will be gravity here in a little while. We haven't necessarily talked about gravity yet, but our readings had a reference to that. So there's something called a centrifugal force, right? So if centripetal means center seeking, centrifugal means center fleeing. That means it's that sensation that when you're moving in a circle, you're trying to fly away from the center. And so once again, more on this later when we can kind of talk about it more, but the inertial frame of reference that we're talking about is when all of Newton's laws are true, and the apparent force is that centrifugal force, okay? This is that, once again, it's that feeling that something is being pushed away. The reason it does not exist, so I'm going to highlight this little part right here. The reason that it does not exist, it doesn't have an action-reaction pair. So because it doesn't have an action-reaction pair, it technically does not exist. But we know it's there. It's based on the inertial frame of reference. Down here at the bottom, we have a couple of things that we need to talk about. Something is keeping the object from moving in a straight line. So what you feel is your inertia trying to keep going in a straight line. So when you turn in a car, right, you're in the back seat, and when you turn the car, that feeling of being pushed into the door as you turn, That's the centrifugal force, that force that seems to want to push you away. But what's actually happening is you're trying to keep moving in a straight line as the vehicle or the thing keeping you in the car is pushing you. You feel the car door pushing back on you, and that's the thing that's keeping you moving in a circle. That's why the force in this case actually works towards the center of the turn and not outwards. So once again, we'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a couple of examples we can use. I hope this is helpful. Take a look at your problem sets. We'll kind of figure out where we are when we meet up again. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.